Marvel loses a comics legend. The Flash box office doesn't live up to the hype. Netflix announces future projects, and another Pixar flop fails at the box office. All that news awaits you today on Multiverse News right after this. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name's Matthew Carroll, and today with me, I have two of our stalwart co-hosts that have been with us since the beginning, Miss Haley Hobbs from Source Pages. How you doing, Haley?
I'm so great. Thanks for having me back, as usual.
Oh, of course. Of course, you always have a home here. And Jay Sisson from Commute the Podcast. How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing well. Glad to be with you guys tonight.
Well, you are welcome. Welcome. Not you are welcome. I mean, you're welcome here. I don't know. It sounded weird. It sounded like I was saying you're welcome, like you said thank you, and I didn't. Okay, anyway.
You're welcome. I'll grace you with my presence, for sure.
Jay, listen, you don't have the perfect attendance anymore. You can't act like that.
Yeah, that is true. Don't bring it up. It's still sore. You can't bring it up yet.
All right, and in our fourth chair today, we have a brand new contributor to Multiverse News. Welcome, Ryan Doze from Across the Bifrost, a Mighty Thor podcast. How you doing, Ryan?
Oh, Matt, I'm doing so great. I've been really excited and hyped to join you guys on Multiverse News tonight. So I can't wait to get into all the different things about my fandoms. I'm going to learn so much tonight, as well as sharing my I would say amateurish thoughts on these topics.
That's what you do, man. You got to lower the expectations.
Under promise so I can over deliver.
Exactly. Always under promise. That's called advertising. All right. So then let's do it. Let's get into these things that we love, these fandoms. Well, first thing, we have some sad news. John Romita Sr. died last week at the age of 93. Romita Sr. was key in developing beloved Marvel characters such as Spider-Man, Spidey's paramour, Mary Jane Watson, Wolverine, Kingpin, the Punisher, and many more. The news was broken by his son, John Romita Jr., a beloved comic book artist in his own right. Romita Sr. worked as the art director at Marvel for more than 2 decades. Let's pay tribute to the one of the kings of Marvel.
Yeah, I kind of wrote him in as a king of Marvel on purpose because we often hear about Lee, Ditko, and Kirby, but Romita Sr. is absolutely one of the kings of Marvel. I feel very fortunate that I just got to see some of his original inks and pencils at an exhibit in Kansas City that was all about Spider-Man. And he really did kind of elevate that character in a way. He is the one behind a lot of the super popular and very well-known covers of Spider-Man. He created Mary Jane Watson, like we said in our news. And it's just really sad that another legend is gone. We've been kind of steadily losing some of these really long-time, wonderful Marvel creators, and being 93 years old is an amazing achievement, and so that's awesome. But yeah, it is sad to lose just another one.
Yeah, people that listen to Stranded Panda stuff probably know I'm not the comic book guy. I don't dive that deep into the comic books, and even shallower is my knowledge of the behind-the-scenes of the comics. But just looking up his name and looking at image search and scrolling through, I owned a lot of these comics growing up. Like I like, or at least reprintings of them. I probably didn't own hardly any originals, but I was just scrolling through. Like I read these. These are things I recognize, and like some of the biggest things I recognize from even like shots that are in the movies that I love are directly taken from his covers. And it's really sad to lose somebody. I always think though about how cool it is that these things were turned into movies while these people were still alive, and seeing these, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, all these great Spidey things, all these great Marvel things have come out in these in this time that these people can still enjoy them and see their work from way back be transformed in this way. And I just think that's really cool. But it's a really sad day.
Yeah, honestly, John Romita Sr. for me, I have a few different thoughts about the man. Like Haley said, when you think of those like foundational personalities and creators in the Marvel Silver Age, the house of ideas, creating all the superheroes that have become multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar franchises, Romita sometimes if you're not like an avid comic book fan, he can kind of get left behind because he was on that second wave, after Lee and Ditko were kind of phasing out of their Marvel stuff. Romita was one of the people that Lee really trusted a lot with becoming the art director for Marvel in the late 60s, 70s, and forever. He was the one that consolidated the Marvel style, the house style that, went through most of the 70s. He was actually really well known as a romance artist. So when he comes on to Spider-Man, like Mary Jane is gorgeous. And, Gwen Stacy is gorgeous because he had this history of being a romance artist. And he was really known for doing faces. He would do touch-ups on people's faces and covers. A podcast that I really enjoy calls it a Romita alteration, where he would basically punch up someone else's artwork to make it kind of good enough to be, on the cover of a Marvel issue. There's one really famous issue that people would know him from in the Spider-Man run. It's the night that Gwen Stacy died. And I think that issue is, when I think of John Romita Sr. art, I think of that comic. And I think of the subtlety of his artwork and the storytelling that his artwork did, where the story is tragic and it's sad and it's a young love story that doesn't end well. And his artwork does a lot of heavy lifting in there. So if anyone out there wanted to go read like a John Romita Sr. Piece of artwork, I would start with the night that Gwen Stacy died. I know that no one asked for it, but I'm going to solicit it nonetheless. But yeah, a tremendous loss and a giant of, the Silver Age and the Bronze Age of comics. He designed and created so many characters. Like, so many of your favorite characters were designed and created by this man. So, big loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, up next. DC's widely discussed movie The Flash debuted to a $55 million domestic box office weekend, well below projections. The film has received very mixed reviews from critics and fans alike. This could be due to a number of factors we've discussed before, but what do we think it means for director-producer duo Andy and Barbara Muschietti, who have signed on to Batman the Brave and the Bold?
All right. I have a lot of thoughts about this.
That exhale was telling.
This is going to be long-winded, okay? This is going to be long-winded. I'm just going to prepare you now. So, okay, $55 million domestic for The Flash. I'm not being dramatic when I say that is a disaster, okay? This movie cost $300 million to make, and it's going to be lucky to even break even with a $55 million opening, okay? Now, this is for a lot of different reasons, I think. We've talked about a few of them in the past, but The Flash is a case study in kind of the perfect storm of things that could happen that will weigh down a movie, right? So you've got in one corner the fact that the writer's strike is going on. There are no late night shows on right now. These talent attached to the film like Keaton and Sasha Kaye and Andy Muschietti can't go out and talk to Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon and show clips and
that's
drum
such a
support
good point
for the movie. So you have that in one corner. In the other corner, you have the Ezra Miller of it all, right? Which we talked about is the fact that this person has a very complicated legal situation, has a very checkered past. Is that going to affect the way that people are going to respond to this movie? And clearly the answer is yes, because I think there was some stink attached, right, to this movie because of all of the working around the lead that's been done, right? There was one red carpet screening and Ezra Miller was there. They gave one quote and then they were gone, right? And it's just like, that's unheard of. So you have that in the other corner. In the other corner, you have the fact that the DC fan base that exists right now is incredibly divided. You have one pocket of fans who are feeling very jerked around over the last decade, and they're saying, wait, so you're going to have Cavill, and then you're going to say he's gone, and then you're going to put him in Black Adam, and then you're going to recast him, and then, all this type of stuff. And then you have another group of fans who are very committed to the Snyderverse and that what was created there. And they got the Snyder cut, and that was a lot of momentum. And then now that's gone. We're going to reboot the DC universe and all that. So the fan base, man, you make one group of them happy, you make the rest of them mad, right? So you got that whole thing going on. And then I think people are kind of like fatigued with multiverse stories at this point, to be honest with you. Like, think about the movies that have come out. We had Spider-Man No Way Home. We had Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We had Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Like, you've had all of these multiverse properties come out at one time. And I think we're fans. We're into it. We can get it. We can sort it all out. For the average viewer, this is incredibly confusing. Like, DC is incredibly confusing if you are an average viewer. You're like, wait, I thought Robert Pattinson was Batman. I thought that, this guy Henry Cavill was Superman. Like, they're confused. And then Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck and who's who and all this type of stuff. So I think all of those factors have just come together. Okay. And I'll end with this, okay? So I know I'm talking too long, but I'll end with this. Every film is assigned what's called a cinema score, right? And the cinema score is basically a determinant of what kind of legs does this film have. So if you are a movie, like if you're a big movie, you will have an A cinema score, because that means that people are going to talk about it. It's got famous people in it. People are going to go see it over the next couple weekends. It'll continue to make money. All right. If you have an A- as a big movie, okay, it's still okay. If you have a B+, you're getting a little bit nervous around your cinema score. You're like, I don't know, we're going to have to drum up some support. The Flash got a B, which I know doesn't sound bad, but it is that is like alarm bells sounding disaster for a movie this big. Because what that means is that people have generally not liked it very much. It means that people aren't drumming up support for it. It means that people are not going to go see it again. And it means that this movie does not have a lot of like box office longevity. It's not going to have good weekends. Right. And so, I mean, it's, if you liked the movie, this is all bad news, I guess, because I think James Gunn, if you're James Gunn and Peter Safran, I don't know how you're not sitting in a room right now going, we have got to start over. Like, I don't know how you're not having that conversation. We're not going to talk about spoilers and stuff, but theoretically they could pick and choose anybody they wanted in this new universe. They could, based on kind of how the Flash played out, right? But man, if I'm James Gunn and Peter Safran, which I'm not, but like if I was, I would be like, if I'm James Gunn, I'm waiting like 4 more years to put out another movie, to be honest with you. Like, I'm saying, like, let's get the stink off. Like, let's back off. Let's reassess, because DC is a mess right now. And these numbers prove it, I think. Okay, I'll shut up.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go away.
Now, I'm confused, Jay, because I was under the impression that you were James Gunn. And that's why
We just call him Jay.
This background would look a lot nicer, yeah.
That's so insightful, Jay. I think a couple weeks ago we were talking about how certain movies, I forget what the other one was, but we were talking about Mario and how it hits because it's a animated film for kids, but it's also nostalgic for adults. So you get those that crossover audience, the whole family can go. So you get those people going into theaters like 15 at a time. And I think like this could have been that, like a great Father's Day movie, if all the fathers knew Michael Keaton was in it, but they still get their like entertainment news from late night shows, and those late night shows don't exist. Like, I'm just thinking about my dad, like, loved the Batman movies, and we saw them on multiple Father's Days throughout my childhood, and like, because they always came out in the summer, and like, he would have absolutely been there, but he would not even know that movie was coming out. He doesn't watch YouTube. He like doesn't follow entertainment news. He's dead now. Sorry to bring the stuff down, but when he was alive, he didn't watch any of that stuff. But he would have definitely been in that seat if he'd seen it on Conan or whatever, which also doesn't exist anymore. Sorry, this is really I'm bumming everybody out. Somebody else talk.
I'll just say I enjoyed this movie. That's all I'll say.
I feel like Matt had his own Flashpoint paradox there, where like everything from the past was all of a sudden very present.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it is. It's one of those movies that I think about when I think about my dad, and so I know he would have been there if he could have, and like, but yeah, he wouldn't have even known about it. Like, and that's crazy to think about. Michael Keaton coming back as Batman, and my dad might not have even known unless I told him. And like, that's yeah, so many people would have gone back because they love those movies. They love the '80s movies, and like, yeah. It's just not going to happen.
One of the first movies we talked about on this podcast when we first started it was Shazam 2, and we were saying, well, it's because of its connection to the old DC. People are done with that. They've heard about all this type of new stuff coming, and they're not necessarily signing on to a thing that maybe is going to tease a thing that's never going to happen. And we asked that question, like, is the Flash going to do this same kind of? Is it going to have that same kind of connection? And a lot of us were kind of like, well, it's got Michael Keaton, and Stephen King says he likes it, and Tom Cruise says he likes it, so like maybe it'll be fine or whatever. But
two very balanced people.
But then like it clearly, it's clearly associated to the wrong thing. And Aquaman 2, like, good luck. Like, that movie's gonna sink. And then, I'm sorry, Haley. I know you're excited for it, Haley, but like Blue Beetle, like, it's gonna struggle. They
have said that Blue Beetle is for sure in the new DCU or whatever.
Well, what Blue Beetle does have going for it is it's going to be very standalone, I think. Yeah. But I don't disagree at all with what you're saying, Jay, that it's got that stink on it still, and it probably won't perform super well.
I think and I love James Gunn, but like I think he is kind of realizing that he's maybe not like the influencer that he thinks he is a little bit, because he was like very out there, like The Flash is great, it's one of the best comic book movies ever made, it's like, go see it. And I think a lot of DC fans like don't like James Gunn, and I think it's because of this whole like, well, we're getting rid of Cavill, we're getting rid of Affleck, we're doing that whole thing, and whatever. But I think a lot of fans, they don't like him because of that. But like I think with this whole kind of, he's got to slow his words a little bit, because it's like Blue Beetle's in the DCU. Well, what happens if that movie doesn't do well? Like, I hope it does well, but like, what if it doesn't? Then it's like, are you gonna walk that back or what? So yeah, it's just, man, there's so much DC drama, and I thought that the new regime would tamp down a lot of that drama. I didn't really see coming that there would be more drama with the new regime. And man, I think this reboot is needed, like, bad. And if I'm them, I'm saying like, Control Alt Delete, like, let's start over.
Jay said something really interesting a little ways back, where he was like, we could go 4 years and just do like get the bad taste out of our mouth and not have any movies. Like, and I'm an Aquaman fan. I want to see the second movie, and I know it's probably going to be bad. Like, I'm like hopelessly devoted to Jason Momoa doing anything. But I kind of like that idea of like, oh, hey, if Warner Brothers like didn't want to like squeeze dollars out of people for 4 years and just like let it lie for a while, that would be an amazing, like, just cleaning your system of all of this. Like, I literally run away from DC movie news because it like, well, that headline will change in like 2 weeks. comicbook.com or all these different like clickbaity sites, like they're like, oh, James Gunn had this for breakfast this morning, that means this for the next Batman movie. Like, I don't care what like, unless it hits theaters, unless I go see it, I'm not like, it doesn't matter to me unless I see it and it can judge it for myself. Like, and if James Gunn wants to make great movies, awesome. I just like, I don't need to be this behind the scenes with it. And I feel like what Jay just said, like, maybe like, let's back off, like letting every fan know everything at all times and making news out of nothing. Like, when things haven't even happened yet, like some minimal steps have been taken. So,
yeah, I'm 100% in agreement there. And it's crazy. We've talked about on this show and on the MCU cast how important the hype train is, and it's not just important to like as a promotional vehicle, but it's like important as a fan, because they like call their shot. I mean, I'm always reminded of the El Capitan Theater when Marvel called their shot and told us like, here's the next 10 movies, and there were a few changes, but for the most part that stayed the plan, and they did 10 movies in a row that they like laid out at that theater. And it's like, that sort of planning, you get excited at the moment you hear it, and then you get excited every moment the story comes forward. And when you constantly have these disappointments, I mean, we haven't had a Ben Affleck Batman movie. Like, you talk about Cavill being like jerked around. Like, how have they not done a Batman movie? Like, it's crazy.
And
like,
you can see him putting the feelers out too, which just drives me crazy. Like, because there's already this stuff out there like, oh, they filmed multiple post-credit scenes, and here's what happens in this one, and this one, and this one in The Flash, because they're trying to see, like, what are people going to say? Like, if people get really excited about that, like, maybe, so they're putting these feelers out. And you had Andy Muschietti come out and be like, well, I actually already have a script for Flash 2, and the villain is going to be this, and if they let me make it, it's like, just don't stop. Like, but the whole reason for that is they're trying to put it out there and kind of see, like, will anybody bite on this? Because if they do, then maybe we can decide what to do kind of going forward. And Matt, you mentioned the hype train, but like, man, like, they did screenings for this movie for fans and press in like late April, and they did a ton of them. And it's like, this movie got spoiled for a lot of people online. Like, a lot of fans got spoiled for this movie because it was just like, people were tweeting about it in late April. Fans don't care. Like, journalists will abide by the embargo, but fans will just get on and be like, oh, you see all these cameos or whatever, and just like start like spoiling it. So, I mean, we talked a couple weeks ago about how good of a PR job The Flash did. And I still think that they did what they could. With they put Ezra Miller in a box and put him under the bed for this whole PR thing, and that's what you had to do. You had to do that, right? But like, man, like, there's a lot of misturns along the way too. And I think just when you look at how to market a movie, this one is so unique. It's in a unique situation, and it's just a case study.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, it feels like there is a hole in the boat, and we're trying to patch it up with duct tape. It's like, no, but it's like really good looking duct tape. It's like, it's no hole. It's like, anyway.
In an ongoing universe like this, you can't announce it's over like before you show 4 more movies or whatever. It's just crazy.
Sorry, I don't want anybody to think I'm like negative and crapping on your thing. If you loved The Flash, like, I love that for you. I'm excited for you. I went and saw it. I had fun. Like, it's just, we're talking numbers,
Yeah. We're talking the promotional machine, not the movie itself. We will be talking about that over on Bingers Assemble, though. So come join us on Bingers Assemble if you want to hear about the movie.
In a couple weeks, I'm going to say something like WB should have taken a tax write-off like they did with Batgirl and just not put this movie out, because we're going to see that they're not even going to break even. But I just looked at worldwide, and they're only at 135. Like, that's crazy. They a lot of times the first weekend is where you make the majority of your money, and especially if there's not good word of mouth. And even though, like, us right now, we're talking bad about it, but not about the movie necessarily. But we're so stuck on like, this did so bad, and like, just people aren't going to go see it. Okay, up next. Among many other media conglomerates announcing future projects, Netflix held its TUDUM stream to announce their own slate, which includes new seasons of Bridgerton, Squid Game, Emily in Paris, and Wednesday. There was a lot of chatter surrounding the first looks at the live-action adaptations of anime favorites Avatar: The Last Airbender and One Piece. Does Netflix have what it takes to dominate all the new competition for the streaming service throne?
Okay, Matt. There is one piece of this news bit that I am incredibly passionate about. I'm an avid fan of this property. I'm sure Squid Game will do great. Emily in Paris is a show that, like, I know my wife is absolutely obsessed with. I've heard fantastic things about Wednesday. Bridgerton coming back for a 3rd season is the thing that I am the most excited about from this bit of news, because the 2nd season was hella dramatic. Oh, Haley, stop it.
It wasn't that great.
Well, it was more entertaining than the 1st season. And then, the facial expression that I just got was incredible. But really, they're coming off of a fantastic spin-off season of Queen Charlotte, and Queen Charlotte was so freaking good that if they take any of that amount of momentum and steam into the third season of Bridgerton, and because they're at the point where they're going to be expanding some slow burns that have been going through the first and second season, I am very excited for the third season. Very excited to see where that goes. So you asked the question of like, does it have that ability to dominate new competition? For me, it does, but Bridgerton, like stories and shows, the level of Bridgerton is not like, that's not the norm on Netflix right now. So it's like they may have their highs might be really high because they just had a bunch of positive press from shows like Queen Charlotte, but I think you're going to find shows like, you've got, Peacock has Yellowstone, and I hear every single person above the age of 40 talk about Yellowstone and how they're going to watch that. Paramount Plus has their shows. Hulu has kind of dropped off the map. The brand new Max, which still a ridiculous name, like Max has all their own stuff. I don't know who gets to be the king and who gets to sit on the throne, but I know that Netflix's highs will probably still be high. It's just a matter of like how many duds are they gonna let go amidst the rare bits of high points. I think it'll be an interesting thing to watch moving forward. I'm curious to see if they can right the ship and then kind of become that giant again. But their days of being like top dog in the yard might be over.
Yeah, it seems like when they started making original content, I was excited about every single thing they put out.
Oh, yeah.
And like it was just like, oh, it's a Netflix thing. It'll be great. And then they just started pumping out more and more and more. And I think it was just trying to keep up with these other streaming services that were coming out that were like, hey, look, a lot of stuff was getting taken off Netflix because it was going to Paramount Plus or Max or whatever. Netflix used to be the one-stop shop, and then they started making content for everyone and everything and reality shows and this and that, and then it just became, I'm not excited by that dump anymore. Like I just, like, it doesn't matter to me that it's from Netflix. It might be good, it might be bad. For me, the one thing I'm most excited for here is Squid Game season 2. I think Squid Game ended up being like really awesome, and like I got it on a little late because everyone was saying how great it was, and it was just interesting and novel, and like it ended in a way that made me want more. Like it made me like intrigued for this season 2, and so like I'm really excited to see that come back. I didn't expect myself to be as excited as I am, but when I saw that news, I was like, ooh, yeah.
Netflix is always the one that I go back and forth on. Should I cancel this? I still watch a couple of things on it. I don't watch that much on. I watch Emily in Paris, I watch the Bridgerton stuff, and I watch Queer Eye, and at this point that's kind of all I watch on Netflix. My husband watches more. But then they still have some diamonds in the rough, like Chris Hemsworth's Extraction 2 went right to the top of their ranking, which it's their ranking of number 1 in the world, but you still know that that's like a lot of people watching that movie. And they did something interesting where you saw trailers basically for that movie on TV, kind of like it was like a movie in the theaters. Not that it's not a real movie, it is, but yeah, so they need to change their model somehow. I just don't know what the right thing is at this point. And I still, like, every month I'm like, hey, should we cancel Netflix? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Their reality shows are fantastic. I'm sorry. But Nick and Vanessa Lachey are like the king and queen of their reality shows. And they are fantastic because they're such ridiculous premises, and they double down so hard on how ridiculous it is, and they know how ridiculous it is. But like it works. Like if you're into reality TV, it works. But man, they ended that password sharing thing, and everybody was like, I'm so mad at Netflix, I'm going to cancel, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, their stock price went up like 100%. It was like every investor was like, thank God, because you got 15 people on a Netflix account. I think a lot of people just went out and got fresh accounts. So they're feeling themselves like they're ready to tackle this next year.
Like you're not canceling crap. I do think they did an interesting thing. Haley mentioned Chris Hemsworth's Extraction. I'm assuming franchise, because if number 2 does well enough, I can't see them saying no to a number 3. But I liked kind of the ad campaign they did around Arnold Schwarzenegger's FUBAR series where he is now the head of action at Netflix. It was a really fun promotional campaign, and I was like, I'm not the biggest like action movie like buff, but that at least got me thinking, should I check out that show? And it had been forever since a non like drama, non reality show like Jay was talking about piqued my interest enough to where I'm like, am I gonna watch an Arnold Schwarzenegger project in 2023? I think I might, and I haven't yet, but I'm at least having the thought about it. And there's so much on streaming services, I just friggin' skip by. Like, I would rather the highs be really high and it be really good and focused, as opposed to like, oh, hey, here's 10 forgettable movies that they made in the last month, and you're probably not going to watch any of them. I think if the highs are high, I'm all in on those things. Yeah.
Max has proved, well, in the 4 weeks it's existed, HBO has proved that I will keep a streaming service if it has one really great thing every week. Like it's just give me Succession every week, give me Game of Thrones every week, whatever. Like I'll stick around for that one thing. And I think that's what and it sucks because we're going to learn this lesson that like, there was a time when like one streaming service was all we needed, and it's like Netflix was all the TV you needed, and it's like $13 or $9 a month. And now we're learning like it's basically going to turn into a cable package, and it's just going to be 7 or 8 things to get all the TV we want. And it's just going to be the same thing like having cable, which is a bummer.
They need to get to work coming up with their new tentpole franchises of the future, because Stranger Things is ending after this next season. You is ending after this next season. These are 2 of their biggest shows. Stranger Things is their biggest show, like bar none, but these are ending. Their last seasons are coming up. So they need to have something to pass the torch to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about canceling subscription services, is now probably a proper time that I can cancel my Redbox subscription?
It's not 2007 anymore, Ryan.
They might still come up with something.
Well, I check my mailbox every day, and I'm waiting for like my new DVDs.
I love it. All right, up next we have Pixar has had a rough time of it lately in the box office, with several of their past films being sent straight to streaming. This weekend's disappointing $29.5 million opening for Elemental is another case of low earnings and poor expectation for a Pixar film. Will Pixar be able to rise again to its former glory, or continue falling with or without style?
I'm going to poorly fill in for our animation expert, Scotty, while he's not here today, but my first thing I'll say about Elemental is I had no idea it was actually hitting the theaters this weekend, and I'm guessing that I wasn't the only one based on those box office numbers. I kept seeing previews for it, but none of those registered with me that the big opening was this last weekend. And then they opened against The Flash, which even with its poor numbers, I mean, that's a tough thing to go against. And on a holiday weekend, too. Like, these things are stacking up. So Pixar in the last few years hasn't bowled me over any, that's for sure. The last thing I really remember liking from Pixar was Coco, which was like a long time ago. So I don't know. They seem to be struggling. I think their president got canned not that long ago. And it's sad to see. It's interesting, I guess. Pixar was offloaded from Lucasfilm. George Lucas wanted nothing to do with it. They were developing it out at the ranch, and he was like, God, just get rid of that, basically. And then they turned it into this hugely successful thing, Toy Story and Up, and just all these beloved things that people love. But they just really seem to have taken a hit since the pandemic happened. And I remember watching Onward during 2020 and thinking, okay, I don't really care. This movie ended, I'm like, great, we watched that. That was 2 hours of my life I don't get back. So it's sad to see such a wonderful animation house get kind of just crumble away in the way they seem to be. And maybe they can right the ship. It's a Disney's 100th anniversary. You'd think they'd want to be doing something to turn this around, but so far, I don't know.
Yeah, one of the executives of Pixar came out and said something really interesting that I think hits the nail directly on the head. They said that they believe that they have trained their audience to watch their films on streaming because they sent about 3 movies directly to streaming during the pandemic, bypassing theaters. So like Soul and Onward, these movies just went directly to streaming. And so people watched them on Disney Plus. And particularly families know now that if a movie is in theaters, if they wait about 3 months, it'll be on streaming. And so if you're a family and you think about taking your family to the theater with the way that prices are now, you're sitting there doing the math and you're like, my kid doesn't even know this is out yet. I might as well just wait 3 months. We'll watch it on Disney Plus and I won't have to go out and go to the theater. And that is directly spot on. Their audience has been trained to not expect to see these movies in the theater. And this is exactly why this past weekend, Iger greenlit Toy Story 5, Inside Out 2, Frozen 3 got greenlit, like all of these sequel movies, because the idea is that, well, we can maybe get some people to come to the theater for a sequel, but getting a family to come out to the theater for a new Pixar IP is just, I don't know if they're going to be able to viably do it anymore. These might have to be, from here on out, these might have to be direct to streaming movies. Like you think about the Spider-Verse movie, the first one. It did very poorly in theaters, but then it drummed up a huge audience through streaming. And now, with its second movie, it's doing huge numbers at the box office. So it's like sometimes using that streaming platform to advance your IP is a good thing. But for Pixar, they're in a really tight position right now, because that not even breaking 30 million in your opening weekend, like that is abysmal for a movie. And if you're in any sort of leadership position at Disney, you're sitting there saying, we can't put another one of these in theaters.
Yeah.
Something Jay said there really resonated with me. He's talking about, if you're a family, okay, I'm a father of a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old. And my kids, they watch YouTube, they see ads for stuff. They've seen the Elemental trailer a few times. And I ask my 5-year-old and my 6-year-old, we can go to the theater and we can see one movie. Are we going to go see Spider-Verse? Are we going to go see Little Mermaid? Are we going to go see Elemental? Unanimously, Spider-Verse and Little Mermaid. Elemental wasn't even considered. And I'm not prepping them for this. I'm not showing them anything like, here's what dad wants to do. Here's what I want to do. It was so overwhelmingly unanimous. Elemental got forgotten in the conversation probably the millisecond after I said Elemental. It wasn't even in consideration for a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old. For an adult, I get it. For a child to be like, oh, no, I don't want to see that. I want to see Spider-Man. Or I don't want to see that. I want to see Little Mermaid. I have a boy and a girl, and they were both unanimously against seeing Elemental. So, yeah. And you were right, Jay. When I see that, Pixar's got a new movie, I'm like, I will wait till it's on Disney Plus. It's not even a question anymore. It would have to be a movie of considerable impact for us to be like, okay, everybody get in the car. We're going to spend $50-$60 for all of us to go see this movie and get the snacks and get all that, all the stuff, get the tickets, all that. It wasn't even a consideration.
I think when we go to movies, sometimes we we know what we want from the movie. And I think that's important. And I think another problem with Elemental is you think about Up. And it's a kid adventuring, You're like, oh, that kid's going through adventures. That kid needs to survive. And you think about, I don't know, a lot of the Cars. They're racing. He needs to win the race. You know what you're rooting for? I don't know what I'm rooting for with a water thing and a fire thing. I don't know what story is being told. I know in Inside Out, that's the feelings. And it's going to be about a little girl coming to grips with her feelings. I want to see that. But this, even after seeing the trailer, I don't know what I'm rooting for. I don't know what the story is, and I think that's another problem with it. But another thing you said, Jay, that really yes, they've trained their audience not to go to the movies for those movies, but I don't think it's just that. I think it's worse than that. I think there is an entire 2 or 3 year generation that grew up not watching their older brothers and sisters be excited to go to the movies, because the pandemic made everyone stop going to see movies for 2 years. And I still, normies that I know that are adults are I was telling somebody that isn't a geek at all, I'm going to go see The Flash, in the theater? You still do that? I had a friend ask me, you still go to the theaters? I'm yeah. because it's coming out and I want to talk about it. But anyway, I have a podcast network. I have to like try to justify it. But no, but there's these kids who've grown up. Like I remember being a kid and going to my first movie, and I've been watching my older sibling go to movies with my parents, and I was old enough now to go sit through a movie, and it was an exciting thing to go to my first movie. They didn't have that experience. So they not only have they trained their kids not to watch these movies, there's a whole 2 or 3 year generation who's never been to a movie, isn't excited to see a movie in theaters, doesn't even know what that experience is to talk about. That's weird. That's a really weird thing.
Matt, I'm curious, what was your first movie?
I saw a double feature of Roger Rabbit and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Wow, talk about 2 very different movies.
Yes, but they were great, and it was a drive-in. So drive-in theater to those 2 movies, and I loved it.
Damn, that's like a Norman Rockwell nostalgia kind of.
You're calling me old in a nice way, and I get it.
I was hoping the subtext would get past you, but that did not work.
What about you, Ryan? What was your first movie?
The first movie I saw in a theater on purpose was Hercules. I saw the Disney Hercules, and it blew my freaking mind. But I may or may not have been snuck into the Jurassic Park movie by my older brothers. I had nightmares for a month because I thought the dinosaurs were going to be nice. Well, here's the thing. I'm a little kid.
No, I get it.
Whose only concept of dinosaurs is the Land Before Time movies. And I'm like, they're like dinosaurs, right? And
it's a live-action Land Before Time, yeah.
The guy gets eaten off the toilet, and I was traumatized for a straight month. I think my brothers got grounded for like half a year for doing that.
That's
but
awesome.
Yeah, it was that was my first. Hercules was a good memory, and being snuck into Jurassic Park was a significantly less good memory.
That's amazing. You guys want to say yours? What was your first movie? Do you remember?
My first movie was Space Jam.
Nice, good one.
I've always been into sports, my whole life, and it was like Michael Jordan and Looney Tunes, and I was like 7 years old or something. So it was just like the perfect storm of like my parents being like, "We gotta take him to this."
Jay, that is like starting at the top of the mountain.
Yeah, It's all been downhill from there. I think after that it was like the Phantom Menace or something. So
Oh, nice. That's not bad. That's not bad.
That's my first experience at a theater. I remember like vividly.
I think mine was The Page Master. To be succinct.
The Page Master. Interesting. I think I saw that like on a free opening or something. I think I'm older than you.
I think you're old too.
I didn't say old. I think I'm older than you. Okay. Up next, Sony released the first full trailer for Kraven the Hunter. Set to release October 6, 2023, the movie is set apart from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and features Quicksilver actor Aaron Taylor Johnson in the title role. The trailer shows lots of violence and blood splatter as this becomes one of the few R-rated Marvel movies in existence. Are we ready to take the walk on the wild side with Sony's next Spider-Man villain movie?
Well, to answer that last question real off the top, Matt, I'm ready for this movie. I just don't know why we're doing this movie. It feels like if Marvel was going to try to do their version of a John Wick movie, where it's like it's going to be ultra violent. He's going to track down some bad guys, his father, Russell Crowe, is the bad guy in this movie. I like Kraven. I love Kraven storylines. You don't really have to think too hard about when Kraven is going after a hero. It's like, why is he going after this hero? Well, he's a hunter. That's what he does. It's the old most dangerous game motif. He's going to go after the biggest prey because he's a trophy hunter and he wants to get the biggest prey he can. I just don't know where this movie. It's kind of crazy now because we've got everything has a cinematic universe now. Everything has a connected crossover, whatever. That my first question after I got done with the trailers, okay, well, where are they going with this? My first thought was not, oh, this is going to be a great story and, it'll be a cool action movie. It was, oh, well, like, what's the plan after this? Like, are they going to do the Sinister Six still? Are they going to cross over with Venom? Like, I had all these other questions that actually weren't about the movie itself. And I think that was indicative of, like, me as a fan. I was like, oh, I have to step back and I have to go watch this movie for this movie. So a little bit of reframing there that I know I have to do, but I'm excited to see what Aaron Taylor Johnson does in this role, because when they announced that he was going to be Kraven, I was like, okay, that's an interesting choice. Because some of Aaron Taylor Johnson's movies are fantastic. Like Kick-Ass is one of my favorite superhero movies. But also, like, I saw Godzilla. It was a Godzilla movie with Aaron Taylor Johnson in it. And him as Quicksilver had really great moments, but he was only in one movie. So I really don't know what the read on Aaron Taylor Johnson as an older actor post Kick-Ass looks like. I've yet to see Bullet Train, so maybe that would help me along this journey to Kraven. But I'm excited for the movie. And I know that I just need to go in looking at this movie for this movie's sake and not trying to connect it to a billion other things. But I am excited for this movie. I think the action is really going to deliver, especially the Red Band trailer. The action was just high paced, very, very primal, like the character is. And I'm excited for it. I'm ready. I'm ready for Kraven to hit the movie theaters.
Yeah, Sony has, ironically, a Spider-Man problem, right? Because they have this connected universe, supposedly, where you've got Venom, and that has a third movie coming. You have Morbius, who somehow poached Michael Keaton from the MCU and brought him over, which, like, whatever. And then you have now a new corner of the universe, which I'm assuming that all these things are connected. And you have this new corner where I guess we're allowed to be like super R-rated, crazy violent. And at some point, Sony is going to have to decide, like, do we want to create a universe of these like anti-heroes with origin stories where they're actually kind of heroes, but they're like vigilante heroes. They're not really bad guys. Like they did it with Venom, they did it with Morbius, and now they're going to do it with Kraven. So it's like, do we want to keep doing that? And then we want to bring in a Spider-Man that's not Tom Holland to fight all these people at the same time? Because if that's the plan, it's not going that direction. Like it's weirdly not connecting, right? But you have the scene in the trailer where he's laying down and all the spiders are coming down, and it's like clearly that's a reference to Spider-Man. But like, what's the plan here? And I hate that that's the conversation, but that has to be the conversation because Sony has demanded that that's the conversation, right? That they're creating a universe. It's not MCU. We've already established that. But like, how are we going to connect it to something else? What's the plan, right? And so, man, I don't know. Like, I think there's just, I don't know if they have an answer to that question. My nightmare is that they're going to try to like bring a Miles Morales film in and then try to have Miles Morales fight all these people. Like that's my nightmare because I think like I don't want to see Miles Morales on the big screen for the first time fighting Morbius. Like I just, I want to see him alongside Tom Holland. I don't want to see Miles Morales fighting these people. But ultimately, like Sony owns the rights to these characters; they can do what they want. But man, like. I don't know. I don't know if we're getting answers soon to that or not.
Jay, you mentioned something there, what do we do with all these anti-heroes that aren't Spider-Man? And it kind of reminds me of like when WB and the CW like, hey, do you want all of these Batman shows that don't have Batman in them? It's like, maybe like for a little bit, but eventually we want what at least our subconscious thinks we deserve out of this. We want, this is a Spider-Man villain with a cool backstory. Great. When's Spider-Man coming? Like it's, there's that anticipation kind of baked into it. And it's, if it's a tease without a guarantee at the end, what is the best, you said what your nightmare scenario is. What do you think the best case scenario is for a movie like Kraven and Morbius and Venom? Like Venom, you could make happen because Venom's been a hero. for a while in comics. But what do you think the best case scenario for Kraven is?
Man, if they create another Spider-Man character in the MCU and then they poach him the same way they did Michael Keaton's Vulture, like, I'm out. Like, I hate that idea of like sharing across the multiverse or whatever. But man, if I'm Sony, I'm just saying, like, let's make another Spider-Man. Like, let's Robert Pattinson the Batman this thing, and let's just like make another Spider-Man and make our own universe. And it's just, we don't have to play this game anymore.
I think I keep thinking when we talk about who Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield should be Spider-Man in this universe. Also, like, we know he's had struggles with darkness and stuff. Like, let Andrew Garfield get the Venom suit and go really dark. Like, have the villains be sort of like, he's like beating up these villains that we kind of like, and then you're sort of scared of Spider. I feel like Andrew Garfield could really do good in this universe. I don't know. That's just a weird idea of a dark Spider-Man, a chapter, which often happens in Spider-Man. But the thing about this trailer that I really liked is that same problem I was just talking about with Elemental did not exist here. Like, I watched it and I'm like, oh, I know who I'm rooting for. I know this is a character. Like, I like the father and son themes. I like the different paths two brothers take. I like him being left for dead, and because he was weak like his mother, and then like him like deciding to be strong like his father, and then his brothers questioning it. Like, there's something very Shakespearean about it. And I think like Aaron Taylor Johnson is really charismatic, like much more charismatic, honestly, than I thought he would be as Kraven. Kraven is just this big. In the comics, I just think of him as this big, like, kind of stoic character, and he just seemed here to have a lot of charisma. And to me, Eric, somebody mentioned John Wick. I think this movie looked more like Morbius in the action, but I thought the action in Morbius was pretty good. And the big problem with Morbius was that problem of like, I didn't know what I was rooting for with that movie. I really didn't. This seems to have a much more clear and sort of Shakespearean, interesting storyline that I'm like really here for. So yeah, I'm excited for it. And Russell Crowe being the father, being that like foil for him to like not want to be that guy, but also want to be that guy. Like, I feel like that story is like for every son, their father. We all have the father that like, that's our archetype that like we're growing to be, but also there's things about our fathers we don't like. There's always that like struggle, you know what I mean? Of like, well, I don't want to do that like my dad did, but I also want to grow into a man, and that's my archetype of a man. Like, I think that's really interesting, and I don't know. It looks good to me. I think I'm excited about it. Jay, you said you had that Spotify poll for this week.
Yep.
Pulled up. Wait, what do we got? What do we got?
All right. So we asked the question, are you going to see The Flash on opening weekend? And if you read the box office numbers, you'll already know what the result is. 35% of respondents said yes, and 65% said no way.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so we're gonna get on into the lightning round, and we're gonna really try to make it a lightning round because this is the longest episode of Multiverse News yet. I feel like these stories were just really meaty this week. So the way we will do the lightning round, Ryan particularly, is I'm gonna read a very short story, and when you hear the story, if you want to talk about it, chime in with your name like it's a buzzer, and then give a short response, and you're the only one that gets to respond. Except everyone gets one response to a response, one rebuttal, as it were, throughout the entire lightning round. So if you hear something and you want to be, if you miss one, somebody beats you to it, you get one rebuttal throughout the whole thing. All right, here we go with the lightning round. Sarah Polley, 2023 Oscar winner for Best Adapted Screenplay, is in talks to direct a live-action adaptation of Bambi for Disney.
Ryan, I am so excited by this idea. What I need, like, as a Midwest guy, what I need is like an edgy hunter, predator versus prey. I need this to feel like the recent Prey movie that they did about the Predator universe. I need this to be dark and edgy. Maybe Christopher Nolan comes on to direct. Like, I need this to be an edgy Bambi. Basically the first 30 seconds of the animated movie, but like for the whole
You want to extend that out. Yeah, you want Bambi's mom. Like, instead of Bambi, you want Bambi's mom.
The tortured backstory that gets us up to the beginning of Bambi.
All right, Daredevil Born Again and The Penguin are the latest shows to shut down all production for the duration of the writer's strike.
Jay, of course they have, because there's picketers out front every single day, so it was only a matter of time.
Dadoy.
Oh, it's so sad. Disney and Pixar released the trailer for Ilio, an upcoming science fiction animated film set to release March 1st, 2024.
Haley, I think I'm going to just say the same thing I said earlier. Pixar, I don't know if I care anymore.
Hmm.
Haley Hobbs has lost hope.
I'll take the rebuttal for this one. I like this. I like the trailer. I like the idea of children in space. I love Flight of the Navigator. I love Explorers. Like in the 80s, children in space was fun for me, and I want like good children in space movies for kids to be inspired about space and want to watch Star Trek later because that's really all I care about. But this one looks good. I enjoyed the trailer.
Rebuttal: Matt Carroll will send your kids to the moon. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if Matt Carroll had his way, he would send your kids to the moon.
To the moon, children, to the moon. Rick and Morty Season 7 will be released weekly in September. Though primary voice actor Justin Roiland is in the process of being recast, producers believe the transition will be so good audiences won't take much notice.
Jay, yeah, I think this is a really pivotal season for Rick and Morty because they are moving on from Justin Roiland, who was a founder of the show. Now, after the whole domestic violence thing and all that got him removed from the show, he's since been exonerated for that, but they're still not moving on with him. And there were a lot of hit pieces that came out afterwards, like, hey, this guy was super difficult to work with. Like, he derailed every season. Like, he was super frustrating. So they're at a pivotal point. They did mention in the article that they are not going to try to like get a person who just sounds like him, because he does do the voice of Rick, the voice of Morty, and the voice of basically every side character in the show. So the recast is going to be a unique thing. Rick and Morty is meta enough to where they can make a joke about it and move on. And you know, I'm to be honest, like, I'm kind of excited to see, I think, a fresh thing for Rick and Morty. It was getting a little kind of like, do we want to be episodic or do we want to be like common thread throughout the season? Like, what do we want to do here? I think a fresh kind of start for them is actually a positive thing, probably.
Absolutely. And Jay Scotty for real in the which is Jay Scotty St. Clair, said, "Don't forget Mr. Poopy Butthole" in the chat. I just had to call that out. Netflix dropped the full trailer for animated feature Nimona, set to debut on June 30th, 2023, and based on the New York Times best-selling graphic novel. Matt, I liked this trailer too. Like, I liked this one even more than I liked the Leo one. Elia, I really did. I just thought it looked really fun and kind of novel and just an interesting take on. I always like a good sidekick story. I like the unraveling of the story, and you got like a sidekick who knows they want to be a sidekick. It's sort of meta and fun, and I don't know, looks fun. Sony has claimed 2 dates for future unnamed Marvel movies: November 8th, 2024, and June 27th, 2025.
Haley.
Ryan, now damn it.
I heard Haley first.
Great, we're rounding out the Sinister Six. Whatever.
Well, you know,
You've had your rebuttal.
Quick rebuttal. I think one of these
12% of the time, you guys, it works.
one of these movies should be J.K. Simmons reprising his role as J. Jonah Jameson and doing a hard-boiled newspaper drama a la The Post from a few years ago. And I just want to see J.K. Simmons in that role again, just yelling at random office people. I would pay $9 to see that.
Your comic book pitches sound really not fun, Ryan. Your pitches are all like, I want a really hard-boiled story about Bambi's mother dying, and I want to...
The title of the film, Get Me Pictures of Spider-Man.
Get me pictures of Spider-Man.
The Incredible Hulk is finally available on Disney+. Universal's rights to the character have kept it out of Disney's clutches for the last 15 years, but the distribution rights of the character have now reverted to Marvel Studios. Matt, great news. We can finally have a Hulk movie. Like, I don't care that so much that Incredible Hulk is on Disney+. I don't really care, but the distribution rights being back at Marvel, that's incredibly exciting.
Rebuttal, real quick.
Oh my God, Ryan, you're never going to get invited back.
I find the way that this was written out very funny. Like, it's finally available, and Disney's clutches for 15 years. Like, someone really exercised their creative writing degree when they put that one together.
Thank you. I have a master's degree in communication. I appreciate that.
Oh wow, weird flex, but okay.
I wrote it.
Terminator star Linda Hamilton has joined the cast of Stranger Things for its upcoming 5th and final season.
Jay, hey, let's go, Linda Hamilton. Get that bag. All right, I mean, you could have given me 100 guesses on actors that are going to join Stranger Things. I would have never used one on Linda Hamilton, but hey, I'm down for it. Let's do it.
I love it. I feel like her hair and the hair from the other lady in the show are kind of similar. Her hair from Terminator 1. Okay, unconfirmed reports say that Marvel Studios will not be presenting in Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con this year. That's a bummer.
I think all of us know that, like, the answer is no duh. I mean, what are they going to talk about? Like, oh yeah, I mean, maybe we'll do a thing, but there's a writer's strike, so we literally can't even write anything new,
Can't even talk about what the future holds. All right, guys, this has been the longest episode of Multiverse News, and we hope you enjoyed it. There's so many meaty stories this week. I really had a fun time talking about them. But guys, tell the people where they can find you online. Ryan, you're the guest this week. Ryan Doze, where can they find you online?
The guest and reason why this went so long. You're welcome. The talent booker said I could talk. I am the host of Across the Bifrost, the Mighty Thor podcast, where on each and every episode we explore the world of Marvel's Mighty Thor. That's comics, movies. We highlight creators. Right now we're in a year where we are highlighting the work of Mr. Walt Simonson. So we're heading back to the 80s, and we're studying all things, Thor, Loki, Odin, Surtur, Frog Thor, Beta Ray Bill, all that kind of fun stuff. We routinely have creator interviews. We've interviewed, comic book creator giants like Jason Aaron, Asad Ribic. We just had a fantastic conversation go up with Sina Grace, who is a fantastic creator themselves. Just a lot of good stuff over there. We encourage you to check us out, and come aboard the Bifrost with us as we look at the world of the Mighty Thor.
Awesome. What about you, Haley Hobbs?
You can find me and Brian V. Klein over at Source Pages, where we read comics and novels as primers for all the geeky TV shows and movies you love. We're going to go real hard at Secret Invasion starting next week with both the 2008 runs and the 2022 comic run for Secret Invasion.
Ooh, nice. And Jay Sisson.
I am a co-host of a weekly educational show called Commute the Podcast, where we try to make you smarter on your way to work. And we try to cram 3 interesting topics into 20 minutes. So I don't know if you guys know this, but elevator door close buttons actually don't do anything. So we talk about that this week on Commute the Podcast. Come find out why. Why are they there if they don't do anything? And we should also mention Animation Deliberation. J. Scotty St. Clair, our MIA co-host tonight. He covers animation over there. So go check him out.
Don't they leave them in, not to spoil, but I want to know if I'm right, because it makes you feel like you have agency?
Kind of. Not quite. They used to work, but they don't anymore.
Right. So, but they keep.
Why did they get disabled? You're just gonna have to come listen and find out. I can't give it all away. I got to tease it.
No,
I got to dole it out.
Of course. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Find all kinds of other great shows at strandedpanda.com, or lots of Stranded Panda things, like Haley mentioned Secret Invasion. We're going to be covering that. If you're watching this live tomorrow at 7:30, we're going to be doing a Secret Invasion podcast. And then tonight at early in the morning, there will be a drop of a instant reaction as well. So check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast for that, or come to twitch.tv/strandedpandatv to hear the live reaction 7:30 on Wednesdays for the rest of Secret Invasion. That's 6 weeks. And we'll be back soon, guys. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.